Mr. President, what do you think about the UK getting into business with China? Keir Starmer was in Beijing.
Well, it's very dangerous for them to do that, and it's even more dangerous, I think, for Canada to get into business with China. Canada is not doing well. They're doing very poorly, and you can't look at China as the answer. I know China very well. I know President Xi's a friend of mine. I know him very well, but that's a big hurdle to go over when you get Canada. The first thing they're going to do is say you're not allowed to play ice hockey anymore. That's not good. Canada's not going to like that.
President Trump with a warning there to UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer on doing business with China. Starmer visiting Beijing and Shanghai last week to what he claims is restoring Britain's relationships and investments with Xi Jinping. He also secured visa-free travel for British citizens to China and a $13 billion investment by AstraZeneca to build new facilities in China. Joining me now is Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon, interesting development here. I think we've seen this movie before. What's your take?
Beijing humiliated Starmer during that visit. We saw it during the communique in which it was very dismissive of the British Prime Minister. When Starmer visited the Forbidden City, they didn't clear it. He looked like an ordinary tourist, like he looked when he traveled the Shanghai waterfront. So this is something that Starmer just didn't get very much out of the Chinese. I mean, yes, they did reduce the tariff on whiskey to 5% from 10%. That probably doesn't have very much of a material effect. But it was Starmer the one bearing gifts to China, including that investment by AstraZeneca. And by the way, it's a really bad idea for Western companies to help China improve its biotech, because we know they use that for their weapons programs. And COVID, we should have learned what that was about. That was 7 million people outside China died from a disease, which looks like it came from a Chinese biological weapons program. And we know the Chinese deliberately spread it beyond their borders.
Well, that's incredible. I mean, look, is this a reaction to what he's facing in the United States? Is Xi Jinping thinking that he's going to get even more, opportunities in Britain with this? Give us a sense and tell the audience how you think this plays out.
I think it plays out, there's a lot of hand-wringing about Western leaders trooping over to China and bowing and scraping, which they've been doing, especially since December with Emmanuel Macron, Carney, Starmer, and Friedrich Merz, the German chancellor, is going there this month, actually. But, the Chinese are going to treat them poorly. The Chinese economy is crumbling. The regime is falling out from under Xi Jinping. And so, the Chinese are going to lash out. And so eventually all of this is going to end up with the West reuniting, because it will have to. But in the meantime, it doesn't look good. And I hope President Trump starts to repair relations with our traditional allies so this doesn't happen in the first place.
Well, I got to tell you, I love this one story about the Panama ports. The Trump administration, with a major national security win here against Beijing, Panama's Supreme Court ruling that Hong Kong-based C.K. Hutchinson's contract to oversee and rule those two ports along the Panama Canal is unconstitutional. This obviously opens the door for a BlackRock-led consortium to acquire those ports, which they've been trying to do, insert American control back in there, Gordon. I spoke with Victoria Coates about it yesterday, from a national security advisor. And here's what she said. Watch this.
They were saying, oh, no, there's no Chinese influence. There's no problem with China. It's an economic decision. Well, no, that got reversed this week because of the sustained engagement of the Trump administration and the president himself. He knows how vital the Panama Canal is to our economy. If you want to shut us off, shut off the canal. It's intolerable that China would control those ports. And now the Panama Supreme Court has declared that contract null and void. The Danish company Maersk is going to come in, and then we'll see if BlackRock takes them over.
Do you think this opens up the opportunity for BlackRock to acquire those ports? Because we thought that they were going to be able to, but then China stopped. I mean, China has been very effective at infiltrating ports all across the world.
The Australians may now be nationalizing that port to kick the Chinese out. Haifa in Israel, Piraeus in Greece. This is a terrible problem, and a lot of it is Hutchinson, which was a fairly benign Hong Kong-based country when they were under British rule. Now they're under CCP rule. It's become an extension of the Communist Party. They can't be trusted. They have to go.
What do you think, Gordon?
Oh, well, Panama was certainly a win, and it's attributable to the Trump administration. That case was started by activists, but we saw the Panamanian Attorney General come in on the side of the activists after President Trump made it clear that China had to leave the Canal Zone. So this was directly attributable to Trump administration policy. But remember that, getting the Hutchinson out of those two ports, that's really important. But China is still there. So, for instance, China is building the fourth bridge over the canal. And remember, it's easy to block the canal if you can bring down the bridge. So we want the Chinese out of that fourth bridge and out of all of its other operations in the Canal Zone. So there's a lot more to do there.
Mm-hmm. And what about this shakeup in Chinese military? I mean, look, the Journal is writing this. Since mid-2023, at least 60 senior military officers and defense industry executives have been placed under investigation. They've been either removed from public office, they've abruptly been replaced. Among them, top officers in the China Army, the Air Force, Navy, Rocket Force, the paramilitary police, as well as major theater commands, including the one focused on Taiwan, Gordon. As you know, I've reported in the past that Xi Jinping has not been in control of his army for some time now. What's your take on this most recent shakeup?
Yeah, this leaves the Chinese military in disarray when you take out the #1 uniformed officer and the two most senior officers who are basically the only people on the Central Military Commission with wartime experience. They were participated in the 1979 invasion of Vietnam. So the Chinese military right now has had its chain of command severed. This is really interesting because, a lot of media says, well, Xi Jinping has been getting rid of his people. Well, I think a lot of the dismissals have been caused by Xi Jinping's adversaries getting rid of Xi Jinping's loyalists, including General Hu Weidong, who is reported to have been suicided last May. So there's just turmoil, and it's not clear that Xi Jinping is responsible for much of this turmoil, which means that Xi Jinping has indeed lost control of the military. He's now struggling to get it back. We don't know where this is at the moment, but really it is uncertain. And, your reporting was spot on in the beginning.
Wow, this is incredible. I mean, I've heard the term he's been disappeared, but suicided? Wow, this is just dangerous stuff. Beijing also moving to build a space-based AI data center within the next 5 years. We've done this and the importance of space in my Fox Nation specials on space. Your thoughts on now its efforts here to build that there?
China's putting a lot of money into its space efforts, but they're behind the U.S. We are going to see probably this month, maybe next month, Artemis 2 launched, and it will circle the moon or fly by the moon. And we're also going to probably have a U.S. landing on the moon next year, 2028, according to NASA. China will be at least 1 or 2 years behind. The United States is well ahead in not only the race to the moon, but the more important race, which is the race for the moon, which means putting colonies at the south pole of the moon, which is the most desirable location there. And we're ahead because of a guy named Elon Musk, because he's got SpaceX, they've got the heavy lifters, they're reusable, and China is at least 3 or 4 years behind on the lifters. And that is critical in order to colonize the moon. Yeah. It's the race for the moon, not the race to the moon, which is important.
Very important, and that's because President Trump understands the importance of space. It's where our satellites are, and it's a national security issue. We know that. Gordon, always great to catch up. Thank you so much.
Steve Witkoff is going to meet with the Iranian foreign minister on Friday. What are you hoping he'll get out of that meeting?
Well, you're going to have a lot of things are happening. You have Iran, and you have Russia, Ukraine, and you have the Middle East. We have a lot of things going. We have ships heading to Iran right now, big ones. Biggest and the best. And we have talks going on with Iran. We'll see how it all works out.
President Trump confirming Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will meet with Iran's foreign minister on Friday to begin new talks on a new nuclear deal. Both sides reportedly hopeful on coming to an agreement and avoiding any kind of military action. Still, though, the president sending a, quote, armada of military assets to the Middle East, now in striking distance to Iran. New satellite imagery reveals some activity at multiple Iranian nuclear facilities, which were destroyed by the United States and Israel last year, we thought. Nuclear sites seen covered by roofs as Iranian officials assess the damage. Joining me now is Fox News senior strategic analyst and Institute for the Study of War chairman, General Jack Keane. General, always a pleasure. Welcome back.
Yeah, delighted to be here, Maria.
So what is your assessment of this armada now in striking distance of Iran?
Yeah, well, first of all, it is significant. And I think what's happening here certainly is President Trump has an historic opportunity here that none of the other 7 presidents who have dealt with Iran have had. And it's largely due to his own making, frankly. In the first administration, he killed the iconic figure Qasem Soleimani and absolutely rocked the regime in doing that. And no one prior to that had ever retaliated against Iran for killing Americans over the 45-plus year history of the Iranian regime. He was the first and only to do that. And then he fully supported the Israelis in their 12-day war and also their war in Gaza and delivered a decisive blow to the nuclear program that you just happened to mention that. And what has happened as a result of that? Given the pressure that's on the regime economically, largely the United States pressure with allies, their economy is tanked. It is in this most serious condition it's ever been in, and that is really what put the thousands of protesters on the street. They're fed up with the regime. They want a new regime. But also, they're weak politically and weak militarily. Politically, when the 12-day war was going on, Russia and China did not come to their assistance. Hamas could not assist them. And Hezbollah, who was organized, 160,000 rockets and missiles, 60 to 70,000 troops, organized for the first and foremost reason of defending Iran, never fired a shot to defend them. Their will was broken, is what the Israeli senior generals told me. So they are politically weakened than they've ever been. So what does that mean? That we're on the cusp of using a military operation to be able to finish this regime once and for all, to put it on a path where it's going to collapse. And what you're seeing here is a force being built to, one, be able to defend when Iran conducts a retaliation attack against U.S. bases and also against Israel, but two, to have the offensive punch to really conduct not a strike, but a campaign against Iran, which would likely last not for a couple of days, but actually longer than that. And that means to take down their civilian and military leadership, all these repressive organizations, to include the IRGC, that have been punishing the people, killing somewhere between 10 to 30,000. We don't know the exact number, but even the lower number is completely staggering. 40,000 jailed as a result of it. And also destroy their ballistic missile systems, which they have been managing to recover since June. And I would imagine, given the indication that you just made, Maria, about activity at the nuclear sites, that they would finish off whatever recovery Iran is doing. This is a comprehensive plan to actually take Iran off the board. No president has had this opportunity. This president does.
Yeah, I mean, he's keeping us guessing, and certainly the people of Iran are desperate for some action. They want the Trump administration to come in and take out the Khomeini leadership here and the whole administration there. Would you advise taking out whatever's left of the nuclear, taking out whatever's left of ballistic missiles, or taking out the Khomeini administration altogether, or all three?
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning. You would take down the leaders, we take down the organization that is supporting the leaders, the military, the police, the entire ecosystem that supports them, ballistic missiles, and the nuclear capability. Okay. There's a range of targets there to take out, and that is building the offensive capability to do that. supported by maritime capability. We have brought in multiple squadrons of air power that are on the bases in the region, and there's more to come into the region to be able to accomplish what would be a comprehensive campaign to finish this regime once and for all.
Let me move on to Cuba. In general, President Trump is now holding talks with the top leadership in Cuba, days after declaring a national emergency related to Havana's, quote, unusual and extraordinary threat to the United States. The president said he's also weighing a total blockade on oil imports to the Caribbean country. Here's the president yesterday. Watch this.
It's a failed nation now, and they're not getting any money from Venezuela, and they're not getting any money from anywhere. It's a failed nation. Mexico is going to cease sending them oil. So I'd like to take care of the people that are here from Cuba. You know, we have many people that came from Cuba that were thrown out of Cuba or that fled Cuba. They came over on rafts. They went through shark-infested waters. I don't know how they did it. And it was many years ago. Many would like to go back. Many would like to at least visit their relatives. And I think we're at a pretty close point. We are dealing with the Cuban leaders right now.
What's your take here, General? We know that
this is not about military.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This is not about military action. This is about economic pressure and squeezing Cuba and certainly shutting down Venezuelan oil, which is helping to prop them up, is going to be a factor. Russia hasn't been able to provide Cuba the assistance that they were normally getting, which was a free-hand donation, so to speak, in billions of dollars. Why? Because of the war in Ukraine that they created. So Cuba is in trouble here economically, and I would imagine what the president and his team are going to do is continue to squeeze them and move them in the right direction to make some fundamental change as a result of that. Listen, the Cuban people in the United States, and certainly the Cuban people themselves, I mean, this is 66 years here of this. I mean, this is really outrageous, the amount of time that they've been under this communist dictatorship. And look what has happened to them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in abject poverty there. There's no quality of life experience whatsoever, no substantive trade whatsoever, no opportunities for investment whatsoever. It's pitiful what this communist regime has done to the people of Cuba. And the promises, when they overthrew a dictator, the promises were so high, the expectations were so high in terms of a fundamental change of life.
Yeah.
And all of that was a bold-faced lie. And that's what's so tragic here.
Yeah, good lessons.
I think the president's team is moving in the right direction here.
All right.
Pressure this regime. Maximum pressure.
Yep. General, it's great to talk with you as always. Thanks so much, sir.
Yeah, great talking to you, Maria.
Right.
Thank you.
General Jack Keane.
And we welcome back to the show my good friend and mentor, Newt Gingrich, former House Speaker, Fox News contributor. Newt, thanks for coming back on. I want to talk to you about this. There's an economic boom. The tariff story, is working probably better than almost anybody thought possible. You've got huge tax refunds. You've been writing about it. We've been writing about it. You've got this Trump accounts where everybody's going to get $1,000, no matter who you are, where you came from. A lot of really positive things. Okay, the economy's growing like topsy. Why can't Republicans seem to win elections? The latest one, I know it's a state senate election in Texas, but it seemed like the numbers, Trump carried it easily, and he just seems to have what's wrong with the GOP at this point? Why can't they seem to knock out some victories?
In my entire career, the Republican Party has worked at being inarticulate and unable to communicate. I mean, it's enough to drive you crazy. You have, for example, in the One Big Beautiful Bill, if you explain that the Democrats wanted to raise your taxes, you get a 17-point swing in the generic ballot. I haven't seen any Republican methodically go through that stuff. What happened in Texas should be a wake-up call for every Republican. We had a district where Trump won by 17%. We lost it by 14. That's a swing of 31%. And if anything like that happened this fall, and I don't think it will, but if it did, it would be a catastrophe. And it would be a catastrophe for the Trump administration. Part of the problem is that the president has to slow down, focus, be disciplined, and repeat things. You'll remember from the Reagan years when you and I both worked together, Reagan understood you had to drive a message and drive a message and drive a message. You couldn't just do one speech and then go off and do something totally different and have people totally confused about what the message is. We have a tremendous opportunity on affordability to pass transparency in healthcare and probably save the average family $4,000 to $7,000 a year, because health cost is the largest single affordability problem. We have an amazing opportunity to take everything that's in the already passed big, beautiful bill, which, remember, every Democrat voted no. I mean, so you can go in and see everybody who gets a tip credit and say, the Democrats were against your having this tax credit. You can go in and talk to people who got the expanded child care. You can go in and talk to people who are going to get the new Trump savings account. You can go in and talk to people who have huge refunds. We're going to have the largest refunds in history this year. And I don't think there's any Republican plan that's serious that communicates the Democrats voted against you having money.
Yeah,
It's not just a report. You remind them who tried to stop it.
I agree. Look, here's I want to come back to these Trump accounts, okay? Newborns from poor families, and I don't care what the ethnicity is, okay? It doesn't matter. Newborns from poor families have a chance to become millionaires. That's what this thing is all about. They're not selling it. They're not hardly even talking about it. I mean, I've been talking about it here. A lot of people don't really know it, understand it, haven't seen the numbers work out. And you've got, you know, employers may contribute, families may contribute. The sky's the limit on this thing. But no matter who you are, there are no caps. It's colorblind. It's income blind. People from poor families and backgrounds have a chance to become millionaires and own a piece of the rock and create wealth. I don't know why we're not talking about that. I think it's a remarkable policy.
Let me build on that for a minute, Larry. You have Michael Dell and his wife. We're putting up $6 billion, $250 million of their own money to help people have a shot. The president ought to be holding future millionaire rallies. He ought to be going into the poorest neighborhoods in America, giving each person their Trump account and pointing out that child has a real shot today of becoming a millionaire. They're doing so many things. It is so cluttered that people can't figure out what matters and what doesn't matter. And if they don't take this, this should be a warning. If they don't take this Texas race seriously and stop and take a deep breath, if they don't rethink the State of the Union and make sure that it in fact resonates and is powerful, and if they don't rethink their entire strategy of going out to the American people, which they ought to be doing 3 or 4 days a week in situations, get everybody in a town who earns money out of tips together and remind them the Democrats didn't want you to have this money. They wanted to take this money from you.
I mean, you just got, you know, it's funny, you just got a manufacturer number, the ISM number today, services, a huge bulge in manufacturing, okay, which had been a little slumpy, but now it's bursting out. Everything is bursting out. Incomes are bursting out. Jobs are bursting out. Now manufacturing, we've had a business boom for the last year. Productivity is bursting out. You got a lot. I mean, there's a lot of material to talk about. I mean, the other thing is, you know what, is tariffs have worked. The critics said the tariffs wouldn't work. The tariffs have worked. In the main, people have come to us and we've made good deals. And that's helped American industries. And presumably that's protected jobs and created new jobs. I'm just saying there's so much to work with, Newt, at least on the economic front. And, of course, he did stop the border. Yeah. I mean, it just, you know, you're right. Texas, this state Senate race should be a weather vane. They've got to, you know, take it seriously, I guess. That's your point.
That should be the warning. And every Republican in the country who cares about winning elections should take a deep breath and stop. It's an old rule, having written a lot of books. You have to spend as much time selling the book as you spend writing the book. Well, guess what?
Yes.
You got to spend as much time selling your policy as you spend getting your policy. They don't do it. They don't focus. And frankly, that puts the election this fall at real risk.
Well, good advice. I agree with you about selling it. I agree with you across the board. Newt Gingrich, as always, thank you.
I'm confident that we'll do it at least by Tuesday. We have a logistical challenge of getting everyone in town, and because of the conversation I had with Hakeem Jeffries, I know that we've got to pass a rule and probably do this mostly on our own. I think that's very unfortunate. When you're talking about the Department of Homeland Security, remember what's included in that. You have TSA agents for the airports. You have the Coast Guard. You have FEMA. We're in the middle of a winter storm disaster on the East Coast. We can't play games with this.
That's the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, predicting the House will end this partial government shutdown tomorrow, even without Democrat support for funding Department of Homeland Security. The Senate passed a funding package on Friday after striking a bipartisan deal with the White House. The House Rules Committee taking up that funding package today. It includes 5 appropriations bills, which funds the government through September. And it also funds just 2 weeks of stopgap money for the Department of Homeland Security. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries reportedly telling Speaker Johnson Democrats will not help Republicans pass the bill, while the GOP contends with a razor-thin majority. Joining me now is Minnesota Congressman and the House Majority Whip, Tom Emmer. Congressman, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. What a mess once again. How do you think this plays out?
Well, good morning, Maria. The Republicans in the House, Republicans in general, are the party of responsibility. We've already passed all 12 spending bills out of the House. The Senate, with agreement of Democrats and the White House, passed 11 of the 12 back. And as you've just pointed out, the 12th, the Homeland Security bill, has a 2-week CR. We're going to get it done tonight, and we're going to govern for the American people.
Yeah, it's funny because President Trump mentioned this the other day, and he pointed out that isn't it interesting that every time your colleagues agree to funding, they do it right before a really important thing. Like, so you're funded until September, right? Right before the midterm elections.
That is correct, and it does seem to be more than just a coincidence, Maria. But on this one, look, we passed all these. House Republicans are taking back the power of the purse. You heard our Speaker talk about it. We passed all these across. They should have been passed by the Senate last week, but they've got a problem with the Homeland Security bill, they say, because of ICE. Think of this, Maria. We've already funded ICE through 2029. We put $30 billion into President Trump's big, beautiful bill. So how can that even be the issue? And now here they are. Hakeem Jeffries and his sorry leadership is going to hold the American people hostage again by trying to obstruct funding when it comes to TSA, when it comes to the Coast Guard, when it comes to FEMA. It's just foolish. It's exactly what they did back in September. It does no one any good. And by the way, Republicans will get this done with President Trump.
So Congressman, explain how that happens, because you say it's funded already, right? You've already funded these operations, and yet your colleagues are saying they're only allowing money for the next 2 weeks.
Right. Well, they want to negotiate quote-unquote reforms in the bill, and these are primarily Democrat senators, because clearly on the House side, they don't have any answers. All they have is just say no, just be obstructionist, just hold TSA, FEMA, the Border Patrol, hold them hostage, hurt the American people. At the end of the day, what happens is that $30 billion, that was passed, that funds ICE, the Immigration and Customs agents, through 2029, $30 billion. In this bill, there's $10 billion in the bill that supposedly goes to ICE. But, Maria, if you look at it, it's for unaccompanied minor children. That money is in there because the Biden administration lost some 400,000 minors that were flowing across our southern border. And the Trump administration, President Trump, is trying to use a government of the whole approach to not only find those kids, but also any kids coming across unaccompanied minors, making sure that they go to family members or responsible adults as opposed to those who might traffic them and abuse them. So I don't understand why Hakeem thinks this is a good idea to harm the children, because that's what you're doing.
Wow, that is just incredible. I mean, at the end of the day, though, you've got this razor-thin majority. I mean, are you going to be able to get this done? You say you are going to be able to vote tomorrow and reopen government?
Right. Rules is meeting tonight, as you previously reported. We'll vote on that rule tomorrow morning, if all goes well, about 11 o'clock. Remember, we're dealing with storms across the country. We expect to have all of our members here. At this point, something could change, but we'll vote on the rule at 11, and we'll vote on the package of bills later in the day tomorrow.
Congressman, what are the chances that you do another reconciliation bill at the end of the year or later in the year?
That's in large part up to our members. This is something that our Speaker is committed to going through the process because, quite frankly, there's a lot of great stuff that was left on the cutting room floor last summer, Maria, and we do have the opportunity to do another reconciliation bill, which, as you know, only requires 50+1 votes in the Senate, which is why it's so attractive. We'll see how that process goes here in the next few weeks.
Meanwhile, a federal judge is declining to halt the administration's immigration crackdown in Minnesota. She says she did not have the authority to do so. The Saturday ruling in response to Minnesota now suing the government, alleging the administration is using operations to coerce changes in state policies and punish Democrat officials. The White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt told me on Sunday the president will not waiver his policies on illegal immigration. Watch this.
The president will be the decider on any policy changes. But what I know in talking with the president and seeing what this administration has done over the course of the last year is that President Trump is never going to waver in the commitment that he made to the nearly 80 million Americans who voted for him to deport illegal alien criminals who broke our nation's laws to get here and then have committed further crimes of violence against American citizens. And that's why ICE and Border Patrol are true patriots. The Democrats need to agree to stop demonizing them. We've heard despicable rhetoric from people on the left comparing ICE to the Nazi Gestapo, Donald Trump's police force. That is egregious language that has led to the increase in violence, threats, and attacks against ICE agents who are brave men and women who put on the uniform to enforce our nation's immigration laws.
Well, the rhetoric is just incredible, Congressman. And then, of course, there's Tim Walz. He's about to testify. Your thoughts on that, because the governor and the AG of Minnesota will be testifying in front of the Oversight Committee. Minnesota governor and the Attorney General are going to do so in front of the House Oversight Committee on March 4th. James Comer, chairman, saying that it's all part of his investigation into the Minnesota welfare fraud. I know you introduced the Stop Citizenship Abuse and Misrepresentation Act. You're calling it the Scam Act, allowing the government to revoke naturalized citizenship of anybody convicted of fraud within 10 years of becoming an American citizen.
Yeah, it's just expanding and clarifying on the current law that we already have, Maria. I believe that if you come to this country and this great country and you become a citizen, you should be assimilating. You should be trying to be a great American. If you engage within 10 years of becoming a citizen in espionage, in aggravated felony, or you're working with a foreign terrorist group, you should be denaturalized and sent back to where you came from, because clearly you don't appreciate the citizenship opportunity that you have in this country. When it comes to Tim Walz and Keith Ellison, look, Tim Walz said the fraud is make-believe, Maria. They're going to come in and testify on March 4th in front of Jamie Comer's Oversight Committee. And if it's make-believe, Tim, where did the $9 billion go that it's estimated that the fraud that went out from your administration in the last 9 years, and by the way, the $250 million feeding our future largest pandemic fraud case in the country, Maria, it ain't fraud. They've already indicted 96 people, 85 from our Somali community, and 60 of them have been convicted. There's housing fraud, there's daycare fraud, there's child center fraud. You saw the Leering Center that Nick Shirley, in a matter of hours, Maria, found more fraud that Tim Walz and Keith Ellison have found in the last 7 years, and it's only because he was looking for it.
Yeah, well, that was crazy. Yeah, the Leering Center. I mean, it's like, instead of Learning Center. I mean, Congressman, we'll be watching all of that. We so appreciate your time this morning, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
All right, Congressman Tom Emmer on Capitol Hill. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Elon Musk making a major power move, merging XAI and SpaceX into a single tech giant valued at more than $1 trillion ahead of a potential groundbreaking IPO.
As the race for artificial intelligence heats up with China and data centers strain the U.S. power grid, Musk is bringing AI, rockets, satellites, and data all under one roof, and is betting big that space is the next frontier for American AI dominance. His vision, self-growing bases on the moon, an entire civilization on Mars, and ultimately expansion to the universe.
Wow. Well, joining us now is O'Leary Ventures Chairman Kevin O'Leary to break it all down with us. Kevin, so good to see you as always. So this merger, SpaceX and XAI, does this bring Musk's goals of data centers in space and life on Mars? Does it bring him closer to achieving that?
It does, and very few people at this point would doubt this guy on anything. He kind of has mandates and he delivers one way or the other. It's just when. And so one of the challenges that he's addressing, which is actually becoming critical, is we have no power on the grid, no more power in the U.S. grid at all. Chinese are kicking our butts. They put on 500 gigawatts of power last year in China, mostly with coal-burning plants. They don't have the vision of space, but that means they're going to beat us in AI data centers on the ground. And so there's a lot of concern about that. We're trying to get nuclear going. That's 15 years away. This data center thing is a big problem to stay competitive, but I love the vision of this. And you know, the thing about Elon is he's the modern Bruce Wayne. You know, he's like, there's no question about it. And I've backed him from financial purposes and investing in his deals forever. There's a lot of skepticism about him. You'd never get the timing right, but the guy executes, and that's remarkable. But the data center thing, no, that's not going to work for us against the Chinese in the next 10 years. We gotta figure out this grid thing. We got a big problem.
All right, so that's my question to you, Kevin, because I think that the outer space data center thing, it does solve some problems for sure. The whole not in my backyard goes away, okay? But you're doing the nuclear thing. Do you wish that Musk was more interested in investing in terrestrial ideas for power generation that could help us in the next 3 to 5 years versus the next 10 to 15 years? Do you wish he was more on your side? Like, let's go all in on nuclear here.
Well, I'm looking at nuclear, but that's not where I'm making my bets. That's not where I'm investing financially. I'm investing financially in stranded natural gas and two-cycle turbines. And he is going to be my customer. I mean, even OpenAI needs data centers. The demand is 45 gigawatts in North America. We have 5 gigs under construction. So I've already announced 13,200 acres in Alberta, Canada of stranded natural gas. I will announce 13,000 acres in another state soon. I haven't closed it yet, and I need it to be tied to the permits. I believe, and I don't want to sound arrogant, but I don't think anybody has this much land tied up with nat gas that I have. I mean, this is 26,000 acres in North America. I'm kind of betting on reality right now. The demand is so high that I have to deliver power, land, fiber, water, air rights. The only way I can pull this off is deal with the leadership in these states and provinces directly with the government, make them my partners. This stuff is really complicated. And the reason it's become kind of a #1 issue is the administration's figured out, again, I repeat it, China is kicking our heinies in this space. They are just killing us. We got to chop here. We got to get going.
Yeah, it is definitely the race for energy and the race to dominate in AI. You've got that right 100%. But Kevin, I do want to ask you one thing that you've said recently about entrepreneurship. You are such a leader in that space. And you have said before, and this is being highlighted by some publications like Fortune magazine, entrepreneurs needed to work 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. But recently, it was caught that it seemed like maybe you were changing your attitude toward this, saying that young founders who were working 18 hours a day were, quote, stupid, saying you're not a hero, you're a liability. So we're curious about, has your your attitude toward a lot of work changed when it comes to kind of entrepreneurship?
It has. And you've caught me, and I'm telling you the truth, because when I came up, I worked 18 hours a day. That's very unhealthy, and it was very unproductive. And what I've done with myself now, I work harder than I ever have these days on all the things that I'm doing, but I've gone into a different metric. I want to be productive, so 7 hours, 20 minutes of sleep. My diet's completely changed. I exercise every day for an hour and a half. I'm completely focused on productivity. I don't make major decisions worth over $1 million after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I never do that. My staff knows I start at 5:30. I want to be sharp when I take huge bets. And I'm telling my entrepreneurs now, if you're the kind of person, men and women, that, I've learned from my mistake. I don't want you working that way. I want you sharp, healthy, focused on longevity, watching what you eat. How much do you sleep? That's the new me. And I'm telling all my entrepreneurs, if you're not that way, I don't invest in you.
See, I thought I was going to be able to say Kevin O'Leary's gone soft, but clearly you haven't. When you're getting up at 5:30 a.m. and you're working out, you're just doing a different kind of running the race hard. Love it, Kevin. Thanks for being with us today. Good to see you. Thanks for sharing the tips, and thanks for sharing a little bit about XAI and all the big deals coming up.
Thanks,
we appreciate
Kevin.
it.
Thank you.
White House officials meeting with crypto industry executives and bank associations yesterday to help break the stalemate holding up the Clarity Act in the Senate. Participants calling the talks constructive, but crypto representatives reportedly felt that banks were slow to engage. The major impasse is whether crypto exchanges should be allowed to offer customers rewards on stablecoins held on crypto platforms. Should the crypto companies be able to reward customers for moving their money out of banks and onto crypto platforms? The president voiced support for the bill, the Clarity Act, in the Oval Office yesterday. Watch this.
I'm a big crypto person. I'm the one that probably helped crypto more than anybody because I believe in it. And the reason I believe in it is because if we don't do it, Scott, I think we can say then China's going to do it, right?
Yes, sir.
If we don't do crypto, then China's going to do it.
Joining me now is the Chief Legal Officer of Coinbase, Paul Grewal. Paul, great to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Maria.
And, of course, Coinbase was a major participant in the meeting yesterday at the White House. What was the main takeaways from your standpoint?
Well, I think the main takeaway for the American people to understand is that the White House is fully engaged. Full credit to President Trump for prioritizing this conversation about the right way to regulate crypto and bring innovation to our financial system. I think it's also very important to understand why the American people should care about this at all. This is fundamentally about not only innovation, but competitiveness in our financial system and making sure that the U.S. dollar remains the global reserve currency and isn't replaced by a Chinese central bank digital currency. It would be a disaster for America if that were to happen.
No doubt about it. How will the dollar get undermined by this?
Well, what the dollar fundamentally needs ultimately is demand. As government debt rises, interest rates are critical. What stablecoins, a particularly important part of crypto, do is drive demand for U.S. dollars in ways that keep U.S. debt in check and keep borrowing costs low. And fundamentally, they also preserve the dollar's role as the currency of choice in global trade. So we think it's important that there be rules around that.
Let me get your take on this main issue that we've been talking about. That is the issue over rewards. And, of course, the banks are saying, look, we want limits on stablecoin rewards. They claim that it could lead to a massive flight of capital. All that money, billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars, are going to come out of the banks and go into the crypto platforms. Because if you are a crypto platform and you lure a customer with actual money, rewards, of course, that's a great tool to get them to take their money out of their deposit account and put it in the bank. And put it in the crypto platform? Is that what you're asking?
Well, what I think bank lobbyists have done in confusing the American people and leaders on both sides of the political aisle on this issue, first and foremost, has been about is preserving their incumbency and limiting competition. The fact of the matter is there's no evidence whatsoever that stable coins or crypto more generally draw interest or demand for community bank deposits and other deposits away. In fact, they support the traditional financial system by, again, supporting the strength of the U.S. dollar. It's not surprising that the bank lobbyists want to preserve that incumbent position because, of course, the bank lobbyists represent interests that have over $3 trillion, Maria, parked at the Federal Reserve that isn't doing anything, that's simply just sitting there when it could be put to work for the American people. We think it's important that that capital be deployed much more than have false concerns about competition.
Well, what do you want to say to the critics who say, look, the crypto companies want it both ways. You want to be able to pay rewards and get a flight to capital into the crypto platforms, but you're not going to face the same regulations that the banks face. In other words, are you going to have deposit insurance?
Well, it's a very strange argument to make that somehow the crypto industry is seeking to avoid regulation and oversight when it's pushing for this legislation to be passed, and it's the bank lobbyists that seem to be digging in. No, we think sensible rules for crypto make good sense. We also think it's very important that consumers understand what they're getting when they make deposits to a stable coin or otherwise engage with the crypto economy. We're all about transparency and competition, and we want regulation and rules that encourage that.
But to be clear, the crypto platforms are not going to have anywhere near the regulatory framework that the banks follow.
Well, I would disagree with that only because under the Clarity Act, it's very clear the crypto industry is going to be under strict supervision and have strict oversight at the federal level. In fact, in many ways, for the very first time. The other thing I would say is that, when it comes to stablecoin deposits, it's important to understand that these deposits with stablecoin issuers are not then relent out to other parts of the economy. These are backed dollar for dollar in short-term instruments, principally U.S. Treasuries. They are much more secure than a fractionalized system that we have with the banks that introduce all sorts of systemic risks that don't apply here.
Paul, talk to us about what you're doing at Coinbase. Let's take a step back right now and see the incredible company that you and your colleagues are building here, because it really feels like you are having this ambition to make Coinbase the primary financial account of the future. You're talking about the everything exchange, expansion into prediction markets, stock trading, derivatives, 24/7 market access, traditional financial services offerings, account acquisitions, AI-assisted Coinbase Advisor, platform expansion for businesses and developers, and, of course, the on-chain consumer economy, and even an international expansion. Am I right?
It's a long list, to be sure, but we think this is very much in line with the president's vision of making the United States the crypto capital of the world. Look, Maria, we want to be the everything exchange, as you point out. We believe this system that has underserved the American people for too long needs an update. And we think the best way to do that is to bring products and services to our customers and to the wider world that fundamentally offer consumers choice. That's what this is all about.
Well, I think it was a surprise to some that you had the launch of stock trading and the Coinbase Advisor. That sort of takes you in a different place.
Well, we follow the interests and demands of our customers. And what our customers are saying is they want to have an integrated option for trading, for basic financial services, for prediction markets and other new alternatives that allows them to think of their financial future in an integrated way. We think Coinbase can offer that.
So if you've got these new and expanding offerings like direct deposit, how do you differentiate Coinbase from, for example, Bank of America, JP Morgan?
Well, I think when people think of Coinbase, they think of the most trusted place in crypto to engage with the crypto economy. We think that's a key differentiator. We also think when people think of Coinbase, they think of innovation and new products and services that allow them to engage with the financial system in new and fresh ways. We're happy to compete on those terms with the traditional banks, other financial institutions as well. We're also happy to partner with traditional financial institutions where it makes sense. And I think that part of the story is also important to understand.
So you want to partner, but you're also competitors.
Well, we're going to stand up for our customers first and foremost, and that's always going to be a red line for Coinbase. But where it makes sense to partner with banks, we're going to do so. We've done that with respect to ETFs. We've done that with respect to other partnerships we've announced. We think there's an important opportunity here both to compete and cooperate, all in service of our customers.
Can you compete on a level playing field if it's a different regulatory framework for the crypto versus the traditional bank?
Well, I think we all share a common interest in safety and security of the overall system. The specific rules that apply to one institution or one technology or another ought to reflect the strengths of that particular alternative, while overall keeping the focus on keeping people safe and making sure they understand where their money is.
So would you accept things like deposit insurance? Would you expect the same boundaries and guardrails that the banks face at Coinbase?
We think that the same commitment to a security standard and safety standard makes good sense. There are ways in which crypto operate that is different from the banks that make certain rules less relevant, just as there are ways in which the banks operate that make rules directly applicable to crypto less relevant to their business. It's all about safety, security, and soundness.
Of course. Now, there's another criticism, as you know, from the critics, and they say, look, if you're going to have all of this expansive financial services portfolios at Coinbase and at these crypto platforms, you're going to miss a whole big portion of the country. What about these rural areas that are depending on lending from the community banks? Are they going to be forgotten in a digital world?
Rather than being forgotten, I think they're actually being engaged for the very first time. Look, Maria, I think it's interesting. Stablecoins or crypto more generally actually offer community banks and the communities that they support and serve a new way to engage with their customers in ways that we think actually strengthen their position in their communities and offer greater alternatives to their customers. The fact of the matter is that community banks, like all banks, can and will have a greater opportunity to participate in this new crypto economy if this legislation passes. The reason? This legislation as currently drafted would offer banks for the first time in 27 years new powers, new authorities to compete with the Coinbases and others of the world on a level playing field. That, I think, is entirely in service of their mission. It does not undermine it.
Now, your CEO, Brian Armstrong, was with me recently, and he was not happy with what he saw in that bill, the Clarity Bill. It's hung up right now in the Senate. Are you comfortable with the changes made? Where are we on that legislation from your standpoint?
Well, we're comfortable that the White House is understands the issue, is fully engaged. We're also comfortable that not only Republicans but Democrats on the Hill understand the need for this legislation. You know, it's certainly the case, Maria, that K Street violence on occasion captures a lot of interest and attention when the lobbyists are fighting with one another. The fact of the matter is that the conversation continues to remain constructive among the principals, and we're confident we're going to see a bill get done.
Absolutely. And Brian Armstrong, when he joined me, walked us through some of the issues in a very practical way. Here's your CEO when he joined me just about a week and a half ago. Watch. I want to talk about the sticking point that you've been raising for a while now, and that is whether platforms are able or should have the ability to pay rewards on or interest on stable coins.
This stablecoin reward issue is very important, and I think President Trump has showed incredible leadership here, creating a strong crypto agenda. We just got the Genius Act passed into law, which actually did enable stablecoin rewards to happen. The banks had their own concerns, and we reached a good outcome in the Genius Act. And now the banks really are coming and trying to undermine the president's crypto agenda.
Are we going to be tapping into the Genius Act for ideas for this Clarity Act in terms of this legislation that would be suitable for you?
Well, it's very important to understand that the Genius Act is the current law. And so if for some reason we were to fall short of passing Clarity for some reason, Genius will continue. And the law under Genius is very clear. Rewards are available, and companies like Coinbase can offer them. So we actually think that what Clarity will do is extend the opportunity for crypto to a greater set. It's very important that we have new rules that go beyond just stable coins and that provide, for example, federal oversight for the first time of spot markets, that there be a clear token taxonomy so that we know what tokens fall to the jurisdiction of the SEC and what tokens fall to the jurisdiction of the CFTC and so forth. It's also very important that we protect DeFi, emerging an important innovation within crypto as part of this legislation. So there is an opportunity with this new legislation, but let's be clear, the law as it currently stands will continue whether this new legislation is passed or not.
Well, this is a very important point that you just make, and I want you to know that in about 20 minutes, I'm going to talk with the chairman of the CFTC. What do you want to make sure that the chairman of the CFTC hears from the crypto platforms?
Well, Chairman Selig has been a strong champion of innovation, not just in crypto, but across financial markets, going back now many years in his career. And he's made it very clear in his early public statements as chair that he sees new legislation in crypto as an important priority to fulfill the president's vision for this new emerging asset class. I think the most important thing that the new chair of the FTC can do is to continue to maintain a very positive, productive dialogue with the industry and, frankly, with those who have concerns about the industry to make sure that we provide not only strong oversight of this asset class, but also police fraud and abuse where it may take place.
Is the goal here to shift Coinbase's revenue profile toward recurring balance-driven economics while cutting the reliance on pure trading volumes? Is that one of the goals?
Well, the main goal is to provide clarity and certainty to this market and this asset class that has been deprived of it for a very long time. Look, it's no mystery that under the previous administration, we had chaos chaos. We had regulation by enforcement. We had whipsaw rules that came out of left field and landed without any advance notice. And we had a hostility to crypto that fundamentally undermined America's competitiveness. What this legislation will do is preserve America's role as the crypto capital of the world, as President Trump has made clear he wants to see happen.
Well,
and if that happens, we think our business will benefit just as others will as well.
I mean, Paul, there's so much money moving into your space and elsewhere. I mean, you just look the valuations in AI alone. Elon Musk now merging his companies, his rocket company SpaceX, acquiring his AI company XAI. This is going to be an IPO down the road, and it's talking about it's the biggest M&A transaction of all time. The valuation, $1.25 trillion. He put out a memo about it. What do you make of all these valuations?
Well, there's no question that we are looking at some extraordinary times in our markets and some extraordinary IPOs that may be coming later this year. What I think it all points to, Maria, is that the American economy, for all of its struggles and challenges, remains strong and dominant, and it's critical that we pass sensible rules for parts of it that will support new growth, new innovation, and we think that that's what the Clarity Act will achieve.
I thought it was really interesting that the company did want to get into the prediction markets business. What's so hot about the prediction? I mean, you've got Polymarket, you've got CalSheet. What is the attraction with these prediction markets from your standpoint?
Well, prediction markets fundamentally give our customers is the opportunity to play on a level playing field with larger institutions that have been able to hedge risks and leverage unique insights into particular markets for many years, in fact, many decades. Prediction markets in that sense aren't new. What is new is that the common person on the street, retail customers, regular people, can now leverage their insights, can now put their intelligence about events and other happenings to work and benefit from that financially. We think that's very exciting.
Coinbase, of course, set to report fourth quarter earnings on February 12th. After the bell, we're going to be watching those numbers. Give us your overall vision going forward of how our economy is changing and how transactions will change with stablecoins, with all of these digital assets. How do you see things changing in terms of practical day-to-day life for our money?
Well, more and more of our life, Maria, is moving online every day. I think all of us see that. Frankly, we feel it in the way that we're interacting with one another, with companies, with institutions, with our government. And so we think it's critical that there be a financial system that is ready for that purpose, that allows for smoother, less friction interactions with one another when it comes to moving money around the internet. We think crypto can play an important part in that.
Well, the president is right. If the U.S. doesn't do it, China is going to do it. What's your take on communist China right now and its efforts to dominate this space?
Well, the Chinese have made it very clear. They have every intent on seeing their currency, the yuan, displace the dollar as a global reserve currency of choice. And they're doing that in very innovative ways. They are offering a central bank digital currency in contrast to the private currencies offered here in the United States and elsewhere. They're providing for yield or interest on that central bank digital currency. And they're making it very clear that if the U.S. cedes its position of leadership, it's more than ready to step in. We think that would be a great mistake and a great loss for the American economy. It would be a great mistake or loss for the American people. And that's why we think President Trump's vision is so important.
All right, let me end where we began, and that is, of course, this legislation. What is your best expectation in terms of the Clarity Act getting back on track and, in fact, communicating real rules in terms of rules of the road for digital assets?
We're very hopeful. I think yesterday's summit at the White House was an important step. And again, credit to the White House for convening the parties. There is work that remains to be done. But we saw, for example, last week, the Senate Ag Committee move forward with its version of the bill. Credit to Chairman Bozeman for that hard work and excellent effort. So we think that once we get past some of these distractions, we're going to see a focus again on what matters, which is giving the American people sensible rules for crypto and giving them a choice in their financial system. This legislation is going to do that. We think it's going to pass.
Some people are questioning why the Ag Committee is one of the leadership roles here.
Well, it's important that the Ag Committee provide leadership because the CFTC will be an important regulator under this legislation, and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission falls to the jurisdiction of the Ag Committee. That's why they're so important to this debate.
All right, Paul, we will be watching your work, and of course, this is an exciting time. Congrats to you.
Thank you very much, Maria.
Thank you so much for being here, Paul Graywall. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The other thing we can't lose sight of is you probably have in Minnesota, and it's worse in some places like California, $19 billion in fraud.
And we're going to find out. You know, we're very deep into that investigation, but we're not going to forget them. And you know, if we find the fraud in this country, you'll have a balanced budget without even cutting anything. You'll literally have a balanced budget.
How broad do you believe the evidence shows the fraud in Minnesota was?
It's easily in excess of $30 billion. So if you're going to issue a payment, you better make sure that it's a legitimate company. Otherwise, don't issue the payment. Go on Google Earth. Look at, it's a liquor store. It's a grocery store. Why are you issuing payment to a child care or a transportation company that doesn't even exist? The federal government has to use that cudgel over these people and say, look, you better be sure if you issue that payment that it's a legitimate payment, or you could end up in prison.
I mean, did you just hear that? First, you heard the president say, if we just got rid of the fraud, we'd likely have a balanced budget in the U.S. government. But then you saw the fireworks at that Senate Judiciary Subcommittee hearing today on the welfare frauds in Minnesota. It's now estimated to be $30 billion. That's about half of the state's budget. Let's bring in U.S. Secretary of Veterans Affairs Doug Collins. Secretary, $30 billion now? Because we have Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, State Attorney General Keith Ellison. They're going to testify under oath on March 4th. They claim they've got it under control, but that's more than triple the $9 billion estimate. It's now $30 billion in frauds in Minnesota?
Well, if got it under control means that you've already let it all leave the barn and you locked the barn after it was already gone, then maybe that's under control. I'm not sure how you can say it's under control when you're continually finding issues and activities like this going on, and it's been documented. And what is interesting to me is to watch the folks try to go out and explain it away as just, this is just an overreach investigation. This really wasn't that bad. You know that there's a problem when they just start talking in terms of it's not that bad or we now have it under control without addressing the fact that it happened to start with.
I mean, that's taxpayer money. And this is why the Democrats have no credibility in the United States of America anymore, Secretary. Americans know that their taxes have gone up and up and up. But why? Because Democrats are not watching the store. I mean, even the New York Times is saying California's problems are so bad, it's going to ruin Governor Gavin Newsom's run for the White House in 2028. I mean, about 2 million left since 2015. The nation has the worst income tax rates. So this is also hitting California. What are you expecting when it comes to fraud investigations in California?
Well, I think you're going to probably see a lot of the same kind of stuff coming up. Look, this goes back to my years in Congress when I was there, and we would talk about this. Everybody, knows that when you have budgets the size of ours, you have money going out at times that are unchecked. I think that's what's bringing the Trump administration into a different light, is that the Trump administration is actually checking where the taxpayer dollars go. I can tell you at the VA just today, one of my directors came to me and said that they had proactively found fraud through a government login system before anything happened in which money could have been transferred and was looking to be transferred out of veterans' accounts. We already proactively do this. If we were not doing that, then that's veterans' money that we're not getting where it needed to go and fraud being perpetrated. If you have states like California or Minnesota or others that are not checking what they are doing because they're either currying political favor or trying something else, then you're going to have a situation in which people are getting resources they shouldn't get, and taxpayer dollars are not going where it was supposed to go.
I mean, we just a few years ago had the IRS hacked. We had the Office of Personnel Management hacked. That's the entire government-wide system. I mean, we know that Russian cyber hackers, Chinese cyber hack farms, also Southeast Asia are riddled with cyber hacking farms. I'm not sure why Democrats don't have their hair on fire when it comes to moms and pops out there and their families struggling to make a buck, and they have to pay taxes because these people are not watching the store. Watch CMS Chief Dr. Oz here exposing the California hospice care racket on Newsom's watch. Nearly 2,000 hospice agencies, more than 36 states combined, 30 times the number in Florida with less senior citizens. Watch this.
In this 4-block area in Los Angeles, there are 42 hospices. So either there are a lot of people dying here, or you've got a fraudulent activity that is so good that everyone wants to get in on it.
There are apparently quite a few hospices around here, 42 within a 4-block radius. And these guys stole $16 million. Listen carefully. The main guy went to jail for 2 years for stealing $16 million, which is a good trade-off for a lot of folks. There wasn't anyone really in there. They weren't doing any services. What we have learned is there's roughly $3.5 billion fraud taking place here in Los Angeles in hospice and home care. It's run quite a bit of it by the Russian-Armenian mafia. Unfortunately, in California, there has not been a lot of attention on these problems. That's going to change.
I mean, a huge 210 supposed hospices in 1 square mile, 210. But Gavin Newsom is filing complaints against, Dr. Oz here for bringing up Russian and Armenian mafias. So, what do you make of this? I mean, you've been doing your darndest to fix the VA and frauds there. I mean, what do you make of Newsom complaining about what Dr. Oz is finding?
Well, I mean, it just goes to the whole fact of what is he complaining about? I mean, are you complaining that that we uncover stuff, or that Dr. Oz uncovered stuff that you should have found a long time ago? Does it mean that, or is the real problem here that you got caught at the switch? Look, I just got from the VA perspective, we just got notified of the doctor offices we were charging for stuff they didn't do. I'm going to tell you right now, you're doing that in the VA. I've already got people on you.
All right, we're going to recap the breaking news at the top. $30 billion in fraud now. Minnesota, that meter keeps going up and up. $30 billion in frauds in Minnesota. It's more than triple the estimate. Secretary Collins, great to have you on the show. Thank you so much. It's good to see you again.
Iran seized 2 foreign oil tankers in the Persian Gulf yesterday. This comes as U.S. and Iranian officials just begin talks. They began them today in Oman. Jennifer Griffin joining us now. What's at stake if these talks fail?
Well, really everything. There's a large military buildup, and the U.S. is focusing on Iran's nuclear program for now. The talks in Oman between U.S. and Iranian negotiators are over for today. They lasted about 8 hours. It's the first time U.S. and Iranian negotiators have held talks since the U.S. and Israel bombed Iran's nuclear sites last June. Iranian state-run media said both sides agreed to meet again. Present for the talks alongside U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is U.S. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Bradley Cooper, who has been assembling an armada in the Middle East to include a U.S. aircraft carrier strike group. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent revealed Thursday the protests in December may have been the result of U.S. economic pressure, which led to a dollar shortage and one of Iran's largest banks failing.
We have seen the Iranian leadership wiring money out of the country like crazy. So the rats are leaving the ship, and that is a good sign that they know the end may be near.
The U.S. State Department is urging Americans to leave Iran immediately. If they cannot leave, officials advise finding a secure location and stocking food, water, medications, and other essentials. There is a lot at stake if talks fail. In the 48 hours leading up to the talks, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy seized 2 vessels in the Arabian Gulf that were carrying smuggled fuel, and 2 IRGC gunboats harassed a U.S.-flagged tanker, and the U.S. military shot down a Shahed 139 drone that Iran launched toward the USS Lincoln aircraft carrier, with thousands of sailors on board and nonstop verbal threats from leaders in Tehran.
I'm sure the Strait of Hormuz will be a slaughterhouse. It will be hell for them. Iran will show that the Strait of Hormuz historically belongs to Iran.
Negotiations today only focused on Iran's nuclear program, Stuart, not its ballistic missile arsenal, which Israel has repeatedly urged. Satellite images show new activity at the Esfahan nuclear complex, possibly aimed at protecting the site from future military strikes. Stuart?
Jennifer Griffin, thanks very much indeed.
We have got a Major League Fox News alert. Listen.
Because here we go. The Dow is now above 50,000. And it is happening now. 50,004. John, there it is. This is an all-time high. I believe it's we're on track for the 5th record close of 2026. The market is bouncing back from what was a really uncertain market all week. The S&P 500, the NASDAQ getting hit by a tech sell-off. And here we go. It is off to the races, up almost 1,100 points, 2.25% gain. John, 50,000 is a big round number.
Boy, I'll tell you, and look at where it is compared to November of 2016 when Donald Trump was elected and everybody predicted that the Dow was going to go in the toilet. In fact, it went exactly the opposite direction. And then last year, when Liberation Day hit and then all the tariff news came out, we started applying tariffs to a lot of goods coming in from overseas. Everybody thought, well, the sky is falling and the Dow's going to go back down to where it was in 2016. And I boldly predicted that by this time next year, the Dow would hit 50,000, and there you go.
Pretty remarkable. Right now, joining us is our Fox Business correspondent, Lydia Hu. Lydia, it was a wild ride this week. I don't know if anybody saw things finishing up like this, but there was a couple big data points this morning. Consumer sentiment was unexpectedly up and beat expectations. Also, the inflation read was better than expected. So what all is getting the market to this point right now?
This is a huge psychological milestone, crossing that 50,000 point mark for the first time ever. And more to your point about where we've been coming from, John was just talking about the Liberation Day tariffs. Just to reset and remind everyone where we were back in April. And the days that followed the imposition of the Liberation Day tariffs, we sunk as low as 37,000 on the Dow. And look at how we've been punching back in shorter than a year's time since then. And Sandra, you are absolutely right. This week has been punctuated by a brutal sell-off in the markets that we've been tracking over in Fox Business. A lot of that driven by what exactly is going on with artificial intelligence. There was an announcement about a new type of software and its impact on really our blue-collar service sector. But it looks like we are the dip buyers, so to speak. They see prices go down, they see a sell-off, they swoop in because they've got confidence in AI and the ability of this market and this economy to keep punching forward. Sandra, you asked about the consumer sentiment survey. This is a monthly survey that comes out from the University of Michigan. They're measuring consumer confidence on a monthly basis, a really important leading indicator because so much of our economy is driven by consumer spending. So if consumers are feeling confident and more optimistic, then that would suggest that there will be more spending that would be good for business and therefore good for the markets. And you're right, today, consumer sentiment jumping mid-February. We're seeing a 6-month high on consumer sentiment. The index is up almost a full point, 0.9 points to 57.3. That is the highest that we have seen since August. And importantly, consumers are saying they see inflation, their expectations about the direction of inflation, they see that improving. They see that further moderating. That's also really important. And one final point that I would add here too is among the indices and the indexes that we track over on the Fox Business Network, we also track indexes for manufacturing. And we got some really encouraging reads out of those surveys earlier this month for the country, showing that manufacturing, for the first time in 11 months, punching into expansion territory out of contraction territory that might have something to do with what we're seeing here today.
So Lydia, a lot of the increase in the Dow, in the last 5,000, 6,000 points has been through AI and AI investment. And then it seemed like it was a little shaky that there was an AI bubble that was building. That doesn't seem to have happened.
It does not seem to have happened. It is a constant and ongoing discussion, though, John. I will tell you, we are always tracking how the flow of money is going from the AI tech spend, from the infrastructure to the software, and everyone is looking for where is the payoff. We're seeing incredible amounts of what they call CapEx spending from companies. Amazon is a terrific example out with their earnings this week, blowing everyone away with how much they're spending in their build out to accommodate artificial intelligence. And even though they had also terrific earnings and revenue that beat expectations, meaning they're earning more than anyone anticipated, because they're also spending so much on AI, the Amazon stock fell off. So there are some questions about when exactly are we going to see the return on the investment. I will tell you, for the time being, there are a lot of bulls on Wall Street. Sandra will tell you that. There's a lot of optimism here.
Yeah, the tough part about this market is the volatility, uncertainty surrounding certain sectors. There's been a lot of movement in the Bitcoins and the precious metals. The precious metals, by the way, are bouncing back right now as well. Looking at gold is up 2%. On the day. That's a pretty big move in the precious metals markets. Silver's also up, copper's up, some of those industrial metals. The energy market's moving as well. Right now, oil is back up to like $64 a barrel. Just below there, I should say. So there's movement all around here. Wow. Really interesting to look at these markets. But the Dow above 50,000. So right here, Lydia, this would be a record close for the American stock market. This would be the 5th record close of 2026, obviously reflecting what is a strong economy, a growing economy. This really flies in the face of a lot of those expectations that things were turning around. But you know, next week's another week. It's been a very volatile market. That's hard for traders. There's been a lot of uncertainty out there. As from an investment standpoint, though, if you've let your money alone in your 401k, you can go peek at it today and you will be pleasantly surprised, Lydia.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think back to the point about what we call the dip buyers. When they saw the market kind of pulling back earlier this week, a lot of investors looked at, hey, that's a good point, a good place to get into the market and put more money to work. And that might be some of what we're seeing here reflected on the screen at the moment.
But here's the interesting thing. People are finding a reason to be very optimistic and ebullient about what's going on with the Dow now. But by this time next week, they'll have found a reason to be really pessimistic.
Buckle up. It's never boring. Always something to follow. So join us over on Fox Business.
Well, Lydia, thank you very much. I know that FBN's covering this as well. John, you always say the markets go up, the markets go down. This is in a market that's only been going up. I mean,
but you see those little dips in the green line there?
That's usually a sign of health in a stock market. You don't want to see a straight line up. You want small corrections here and there, which provide opportunities for buyers to step in. And for those who did, congratulations, because you're enjoying this ride up.
Yeah, well, you know far more about this than I. I look at my 401k about once every 5 years.